No, don't worry.
All
Don't worry,
good.
Joe.
Hi, welcome to a very special stream from us at Revolution Software. My name is Wendy. For those of you who don't know, Revolution is a game developer based in York, England, and we made such games as Beyond the Steel Sky, which is coming to Steam very soon. So today we're going to talk about that some more, but let's introduce ourselves first. Let's start
Hi.
with Charles.
Yep, my name is Charles Cecil. I am one of the founders of Revolution, and I am the game director of Beyond the Steel Sky.
Well, I'm next then. Yeah, my name is Tobias. I'm producer at Revolution and been working on Beyond the Steel Sky, which we are excited is now out on Apple Arcade.
All right, awesome. So let's see who's here already. Say hi in chat if you can hear us and if you can see us. So, oh my God, there's so many of you already here. Yay. All right, and I'm Wendy. I'm the communications manager at Revolution Software. I've been communicating with you guys a lot on the Discord, on many Discords actually, everywhere where you've tried to contact us. So yeah, has been an emotional, very busy week for us, hasn't it, Charles?
It's been an extraordinary week. It's always incredible when a game comes to launch, because you've got years of your soul and everything, and Tobias, I have to say, has been brilliant, because I have two roles. I have obviously an executive role, but I'm also I write the stories and manage I manage a team who write the puzzles. And so what Tobias has had to do is manage me on one side, going, but there's more we can do, and then the team. And there is always more that you can do. And we have a fairly small team to write a very, very ambitious game. But I'm absolutely thrilled by the reception that the game has received. Yes, there are on some devices, because there are so many devices on across the Apple family. There are some devices that we found that the game didn't work on, and we're fixing that. And on some low-end devices, we are doing a bit of optimization. We'll be putting out a new patch. But people who've been able to play the game smoothly, which is the vast majority, have been giving us the nicest feedback, and it just means the world to us. It really does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Sorry. I'm just so overwhelmed. And my computer's currently struggling because that's the curse of streaming. So yeah, it's been a wild week. We went from not having anything announced and people obviously being a little bit on the edge about that, to announcing two things. First of all, we have come out in Apple Arcade. Apple had announced it on Thursday. We actually learned about it. We learned about it a little bit delayed, later than pressed it, that it was announced. And it was fantastic. Like the smiles on our faces and just how excited we were to know we can finally talk about this. We can finally announce it. We can finally look you in the face and tell you it's not soon anymore. It's now. Like that was a highlight, an actual highlight of my life. Yeah. So this week has been full of giving people the experience they deserve. And I think this is also why we have Tobias on with us today, because obviously such a monumental task, as Charles already touched on, has a lot to do with getting organized and knowing where to be effective. So when people think about game development, often they think about this is a developer, but really everything is a team effort. We have scripters that are assigned to special levels, for instance, but they don't do it alone. And we all work best as a collective. So what we've done is trying to really focus on the biggest issues roll out a day one patch for Apple Arcade, which, like we submitted that within 24 hours of the game being live, which is one of the fastest times I've ever seen a small indie studio react to something like that. And I'm really proud of that and everyone. And there's more on the way with that. And we're going to touch on that a little later, but I think you all are tuned in for something else. And
Wendy, before we go any further, can I just reiterate, you put out some tweets about our relationship with Apple. And just to be absolutely clear, Apple have been a fantastic partner. We spoke to them a year and a bit ago when they told us about Apple Arcade. We were very, very excited. But their question was, what could our support do in terms of you writing a game that is more ambitious than you would otherwise be able to do? And that was an extraordinarily generous question, because it wasn't, how can you, how's it going to benefit Apple Arcade? How are we going to stop you doing this or do that? It was, how can we improve the ambition, enhance the ambition? And we've had, as a lead Apple Arcade title, it's given us the opportunity to really look at what an adventure could be from our perspective. The extraordinary thing is that Revolution's been writing adventure games for 30 years now, and I've been writing adventure games for 40 years. And so there's this position where we can look at our previous games, look at what went well, look at what didn't go so well, look at how the market has changed, what people want compared to what they wanted before. And I mean, hopefully we got most things right. Everything is new, everything is innovation. We're always trying to do things that haven't been done before. And so what I'd like to then also go back to is back in 2008, when the publishers that we were working with had decided that the adventure was dead. And we were invited by Apple to write Beneath the Steel Sky, or to port it across the touchscreen for the iPhone. And we were able to release it, and that was absolutely fantastic. And we got a lot of support from Apple. And it was them that contacted us in the first place. And then we released Broken Sword on their platform, and they invited us to be something called the 12 Days of Christmas. And we were actually in a very weak position, to be quite honest, because adventures were not popular in the eyes of the publishers, but clearly they were amongst people playing, on the games. And we had 2.5 million downloads in one day, which was just extraordinary. But what I remember particularly vividly was that the guys at Apple who had organized it were really excited. And over the weekend, they kept sending us updates saying, it's done this, it's done that, it's gone to #1 here. Broken Sword is trending in the top 10 most tweeted keywords in the world. And the enthusiasm from the world's biggest brand about a game from this tiny developer in the north of England was quite, extraordinary. So to be asked to be a major title for Apple Arcade is a great honor, and we're delighted to continue the relationship with Apple. But the key thing is that we are able, with their blessing, to bring the game to PC on Steam, and we'll be talking about that very shortly.
Yeah. God, this is such an insane journey. We're not talking about a studio that had 2 years of a relationship in the industry, which is already monumental considering how far relationships can go. We have been here from before the digitalization of storefronts, and that is an incredible historic point of perception for a studio to have. I don't know, we talk a lot about what the gaming future is, and what what mobile games have to do with, like PC games. And there's a lot of like these hierarchies. It reminds me a lot about the console wars that happened back in like the early 2010s. Do you remember? Like, I'm PlayStation, I'm Xbox. And nowadays we're just like, what do you play on? And that's fine. And a lot of stuff is cross-platform, and gaming moves more towards this unity thing. And I think like we've already dismantled so much about like the idea of like what is a mobile title and what is a console title, because we are trying to bring this comfort of mobile and this action of console into a game, into the gaming world. And that's something that I think Apple Arcade does insanely well. Like it's mind-blowing to me that you can play the same game you can play sitting down on your, like iMac with a giant 32-inch screen or what have you, and then sit down on your iPhone X and play the same game, cloud save, just completely fluently. Like, how is that still mobile gaming? And it is mobile, the same way that you can take it with you, but it really redefined the genre. And we're so proud to be proud of, sorry, God, I've had so little sleep lately. We're so proud to be part of that. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions about that, feel free to.
I want to ask a quiz, okay? Because this is the computer that I wrote my first game from, okay? This is my iPhone. I want people to say how much more memory there is as a proportion, as a percentage. How much more memory is there in this than there was in this? And Wendy, can we give a prize to anybody who gets the closest number?
Let's give a free Steam key for the game. One stop. What do you think?
Sorry, sorry, could you say it again?
I said let's do a free Steam key for whoever guesses it.
Perfect.
Charles, could we help the audience out a bit, just saying which model, which iPhone model you have?
Okay, let's give it away. I have 256 gig on my iPhone 10. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you what kind of computer this is. Ask your dad, because your dad will be able to tell you. Okay, and I'm not going to tell you how much memory, because if I did, it would be rather giving it away. But this, and look how beautiful the shape is. Isn't that fantastic? And that allowed you to put a RAM pack of 16K in the back. So it just gave you so much memory, you wouldn't have any idea what to do with it.
Charles is like, what am I going to do with all this free real estate?
I know.
He's like, what? How many games do you want us to make for this one? I'm sorry.
So the extraordinary thing is, and Wendy, you I think it was an interesting point. I hope other people will find it interesting. But when Revolution started in 1990, of course there was no digital storefront. So what happened was that a developer would go to a publisher, and a publisher would commission a game. But so our main client was the publisher. The publisher's main client was the retailer, and the retailer's main client was the gamer. So we were many steps removed from people who were actually playing the games. So we got no feedback whatsoever. The only feedback that we ever got was through magazines, because gamers would obviously write to magazines, and the magazines would print their letters. And one of the extraordinary changes that happened with, and it was led by the iPhone, because there was ubiquitous broadband at that point in 2007, and iTunes had already existed, and the games came out on iTunes. But this ability to communicate directly with our audience through social media and to publish games ourselves was absolutely mind-blowing. Because if you think about a retailer has, I don't know, 200 or 300 slots, and they choose which games go in. And what happened was that PlayStation in particular was so successful that it displaced PC. So you had a little area of PC games, and they, of course, were all the big first-person shooters. And that's why adventure games couldn't compete anymore, because they couldn't retail just wouldn't take them anymore. And what happened when the iTunes and then the App Store came along was that suddenly you effectively had an infinite storefront, and that changed absolutely everything, because it meant that for games like Adventures, which didn't quite work in the retail model were hugely popular, particularly because a lot of people had played them previously. And that's why, as I said earlier, that 12 Days of Christmas with 2.5 million downloads was amazing. I mean, the other extraordinary opportunity we had was when we brought the original Broken Sword to PlayStation. And our publisher at the time, which was Virgin Interactive, who were great, and we liked them a lot, but they were absolutely convinced that the game would not work on a PlayStation, because PlayStation was all about 3D, and it was all about visceral, and it was all about young men playing games. And we said, well, we'd like to bring it anyway. So we talked to Sony, and the game got, nobody was interested in it. It got reviewed in the official PlayStation magazine, which at that point had a circulation of 600,000 magazines a month. The Germans was about the same, and the French was that. And in each one of those, we got 10 out of 10 and extensive coverage. So millions and millions of magazines went out with cover-mounted versions of the game. So that was probably the equivalent. That was the only equivalent of actually being able to reach millions of people in one go. It was absolutely extraordinary. Wendy. Oh no, we can't hear her. Tobias, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think we're gonna have to ad lib.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, we can.
Yeah, now we
yes,
can hear
yes.
you.
But now we can't.
I think we're on our own, Charles.
Sorry.
I think, Tobias, I think that before we actually reveal and talk further about Steam and everything, could you just talk about what it's like to be a producer? What does your job entail?
Before I go into answering that, I think I want to share a personal story, as it's quite fitting now with since because of Corona we're all spread out in having a home office. So I'm actually back in my native country, Norway, now, in my little village called Gvarv. This is where I played my first Revolution games about 20 years ago. Been a big fan since, and I think we now have gone full circle now with releasing a Rev game that I've been a part of, and it's been an extraordinary journey, and I'm really, really proud of what we've done, and really excited about coming out on Steam as well. So to answer your question about being a producer, I came in with a lot of passion and enthusiasm, being a Broken Sword and Beneath the Steel Sky fan myself. But I think the core of my role here at Revolution is ensuring that we are making the game that we always wanted to do, and we make it within a scope that is feasible to do with the resources we have and the time frames we've set. That is kind of the ultimate goal that I've aimed at in achieving, but also it's help making sure everyone has what they need to do their job. Everybody knows what their tasks are. If anything goes wrong, I'm there to support them. I'm there to also celebrate the goals we've achieved. It's making sure the day-to-day operations run smoothly. That is the gist of it.
And that, I think we've probably lost Wendy. So I think what you do is so important, and it's probably a role that people don't comprehend. So the idea of making sure that we can deliver to the vision within the resources available. So that is both the financial side and also the human resource side.
Yeah, it is sometimes having tough negotiations with yourself about what features we want to include, and those that we kind of have to put on a nice have list. It is recruiting extremely talented team members, which I'm really proud of the team we had, and that's been part of the game. It is negotiating with and finding good partners that can support us on different aspects like audio and graphics and tech. it's a bit of everything, but it's a lot of moving parts, but that's also what makes it interesting. You get to be a part of a lot of processes and a lot of meetings and decisions. So it's been a real pleasure and really exciting.
And how difficult, Tobias, is it for you to convince me when I really, really want to just do one more thing, and you know that we've got to get it out and we've got to close the production down? How difficult a job was that?
That is quite difficult, but I don't want to disclose anything, but I got my tricks.
You really dug your heels in.
Yeah.
Oh my God! But thank God you did. Thank God you did, because the problem is, I mean, the in video games, there are two things that I bring forward. The first one is that people say that the first 80% of the game takes 80% of the time, and the last 20% takes another 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, the worst thing that everybody try, particularly if you're the game design, and you're driving that, is feature creep. And when we wrote our first games, we used a production system called Waterfall. And what Waterfall is that you define what the game is going to be, you write the story, you design the puzzles, you give it to a publisher, they go, that's great, and we'll fund it. And that's fine, except the idea of designing everything in advance and not being able to iterate based on what you've achieved is absolute lunacy. And it means that you're very much in a straitjacket, because from a publisher perspective, they want to be able to sign off the invoices and the milestones, and they go, yeah, you've achieved this. You said you were going to achieve this. And to actually say, well, we said we were going to achieve this. We've achieved just as much, but actually it's better because we couldn't see exactly what it was going to be. And that made people very, very nervous. And so what Tobias did was bring in his experience of what's called Scrum. And I know we're going to talk about, and while we wait for Wendy, would you mind just explaining what Scrum development is?
Well, I'll think, like, more in general, Scrum is one of many agile methodologies in production. But I think my philosophy around that is, when you start a game production and you work on a game, you also learn about what this game is what it is and what it's meant to be. So defining everything before you go into production, and think you got all the right answers before you started, really getting your hands dirty, can lead to a lot of failed assumptions and kind of wasted time and effort. So my approach to this is that when we got into production, we know what the game, what works within our designs, of what doesn't work, then we change our priorities thereafter. So we've done this with setting epics, with setting sprints, and then we work on short term, with short term goals, like week to week, every other week, and then we prioritize what's necessary to achieve within those time frames. So we are agile in our goals and what we want to achieve.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry my internet dropped. It's
No,
always
not at all.
when we stream, my laptop's just like, you know what? I'm gonna go shut down for a while.
So but at the heart of it is the idea. Sorry, we're just talking about Scrum and Agile. At the heart of it is that you have variables like the scope, like the quality, like the time, like the finance, all of these. And what would have happened under the waterfall system is that your budget was fixed, your scope was fixed, and your time was fixed. So the only variable that could move is quality. So if you started running out of time or money or budget, then the quality dropped. And at its heart, what Agile is about is that the quality is the one thing that can't change. The quality has to be as high as possible. So if you say the budget can't change and you say that the time can't change, then it has to be the scope that changes. And that's quite, on the face of it, that sounds really obvious, but that was really quite a major change in the way that production worked. Because what you have is a list of absolutely what you have to have, and then nice to haves all the way up here, on the basis that the nice to haves go on forever, but you choose very carefully as to how to prioritize them, and that's something else that you Tobias took obviously charge of as well.
Yeah, no, that involves constant discussion about what are the priorities, what are the nice to haves, and what are the features we need to have in, and that just involves a lot of creative meetings and a lot of prioritization. But so it's a transition getting into that, but I think we that went fairly good, and at the end there it felt like Revolution had done Scrum since day one. So really happy with how that turned out.
Well, thank you for your contribution on all of that. Sorry, so Wendy, back to you.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about dropping out. My internet is really terrible. I live in London. Maybe that's my excuse. But yeah, I've come from a pretty disorganized production management into this studio. So I was tumbling around for a while there, but Tobias is the start all and end all of things. So whenever I want anything at all, I have to go to the Eye of Sauron and beg for it. Which, you know, it's good and bad, right? Because it makes me a bit less flexible, but it really disciplines this kind of like I would say destructive productive behavior that you can sometimes exhibit in indie studios, where you as a person, you just want to do so much all the time. I think it's really hard to communicate really how much we love our jobs and how hard it is to say no and stop working, even if it's not productive to keep working or keep doing something, or quickly do something. And Tobias is really the person that kind of like clears your head and says like, if you don't have it a week in advance, you shall not have it at all. And
so why do you think that somebody who looks so charming and so gentle and so nice is actually known as the Eye of Sauron? Is that do you think there's logic in there?
Well,
the evil eye that looks and sees everything.
Well, he's tall. I guess that's a lot of it. And it's just that he shoots us down when we dream too much. He really.
Oh, Kira, we can hear you.
Yes. So let's start dropping the big one. What do you guys say?
Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, so as Wendy said, as we said right from the beginning, the Apple Arcade version came out on, I think it was the 27th or 28th, and that was absolutely fantastic. And you know, now we're delighted to say that the Steam version will be coming on the 16th of June. So, sorry, July. Yeah. I beg your pardon.
July.
16th of July. Oh,
somebody clipped that.
It was so easy to get right, and I failed to get it right. So yes, it's the 16th of July.
16th of July, guys. That's in 16 days. That's 15 times sleeping. That's it. 15 times. Can you guys do that with us?
So we've got two weeks, and of course we'll continue to hone and we'll continue to polish, and we've got some fantastic people giving us bugs. Sorry about those bugs, but thank you for reporting them, and we're fixing them. So we're really excited, and it'll be the next part of our journey, our Revolution journey, our Beyond a Steel Sky journey. And you know, what I was saying earlier was that when we were able to self-publish, we were able to bring along our community, which was great. And it's just fantastic to be able to work directly, hear from you, communicate directly, hear your thoughts, hear what you like, hear what you don't like, respond to that. So please just keep in contact, because we enormously value what you guys have to say.
We really do. So right now, you kind of probably already know me from, I'm the person who's in the Discord announcing everything. I posted known bugs. I keep those lists updated. So for those of you who are actually not in our Discord yet, it's just discord.gg/revolution software, all one word. I'm going to put it into chat as well. This is the one place that we are at every waking hour. If I'm awake, I will respond to you. Unless I'm in a stream right now. I actually don't look at them. But we are there multiple times a day reading everything that anybody has ever said. We're logging. If we don't tell you that we're screenshotting it, we are. It's going into a Slack channel that's dedicated for support. I also have one for just compliments. Sometimes I crop out the butt parts, which is why they're like really short. But when you say you love this game and it's a good game, but I will crop the "it's a good game" part out and give it to the devs as a compliment, and I crop the butt part out and I put it into support. And we log that shit. We have a dedicated backtracking board, which is called Mantis. Isn't that cute? I don't know. It's the first time I heard of it is when I worked with Revolution. Which I think, Tobias, can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everyone for posting comments on Discord. It's very helpful. The workflow there is that Wendy, yeah, she collects all of this and then she passes this to myself and the team. We use this actually to prioritize the work we're doing now in the post Apple Arcade post launch days, and it's very helpful. So please continue doing that. It's great to have your feedback, and this is actually you're actually contributing to how we do post launch support. So that's great. Speaking on Mantis, that's our bug tracker. So it contains all current bugs and all fixed bugs. It's a way for us to have all this information sorted out in a manageable way, and then we use that to document the steps that takes into reproducing a bug. We also use that to share information if these bugs are related to what some of our partners are doing. So yeah, it's just a great tool for storing that and managing that information.
Yeah. So every time you give feedback, even if you see that feedback posted already, if you're like, oh, I crashed at, I don't know, the piazza. If you post that and you see above you somebody has already posted that, just say, yeah, me too, or I also experienced this exact issue. It helps us know how many people are experiencing this issue, and it helps us, as Tobias said it so wonderfully, it helps us prioritize. And it helps us figure out if this is an isolated issue, if this is something we can walk you through, or if this is something we have to find a workaround for you now, but fix in the coming update. I don't think we've addressed it unless it was while I was disconnected. iPhone SE 2020 update is currently pending approval. So it is about to be rolled out. I really, really hope that it arrives to you soon. We're so sorry. I don't actually know what happened there. I've never seen anything like this before. And it's something that's...
It was a bug in the engine that we use. So yeah, and we didn't, unfortunately, it was one of the devices that we didn't have to test on, so it was missed. So apologies for anybody with an iPhone SE 2020.
But we're hoping that because we already put out some other patches before the iPhone SE 2020 is being patched, that you guys are going to hit the platform with a very great experience. But please keep in touch with us. As I said over Discord, it's discord.gg/revolutionsoftware. And yeah,
one other thing, Wendy, one other thing. And if you gave us 1 star, because it didn't work on the SE 2020, which is quite legitimate, then if you do enjoy the game, please go back and consider maybe giving us slightly more than 1 star.
Yes. So fun fact that works with a lot of reviews on App Store is that if developers update the game, often the reviews become invisible, and new reviews are being counted for the review system. So we're not just saying that because we want you to remove your 1 star. It's also because we want to have an update and a real representation for us as well, if you enjoyed this game or not. For those of us for those of you who've been generously leaving really good star reviews for us on the platform, for those of you who have had a great experience playing this game already, we hope to only add to that, and we hope that you still check out the updates and keep us updated how it works for you. Yeah, like generally we just love being in touch with our community, and we love talking to you guys, and we love seeing how you're getting on with it. and we're going full steam ahead for the July 16th. It's really exciting. It's really, really exciting. God, I'm just so happy that we finally told you. We weren't so sure.
Isn't it lovely that so many people care so much, though? I mean, and Tobias, I'm sure you'd agree, it's a huge privilege that, there's so much passion.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's
great. I
great.
mean, we're very, very lucky, aren't we? Really lucky.
We're really lucky, and one thing we haven't said already is that we are also going to release a Linux version on the Steam on the same date as well for those Linux
hardcore
fans out there.
players.
Yeah. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, we love Linux players. A huge shout out to Joost, who's working with us. I mean, he can be best described by one of you guys. I think I couldn't do it justice. Can you guys tell the stream who Joost is?
Well, should I give him his history? Because obviously I know. So this actually, thank you, Wendy. This is a really important part of the whole history. The original Beneath the Steel Sky was written in MS-DOS back in 1994. And that was before Windows really existed, I think. But certainly Windows was not popular at all. And Windows 95 supported DOS. And I think it was Windows 98 or maybe Windows 2000 that stopped supporting DOS. And so effectively the game was dead because it was on an antiquated PC system, MS-DOS, and the Amiga. And much as we love the Amiga, obviously the Amiga was no longer current. So effectively the game couldn't be played. It was dead, it had gone. And then a group of students created a platform called ScumVM, which many of you will know. And ScumVM then assigned projects to people to take the source code and rewrite the source code so that it worked within ScumVM. And then the idea, of course, was that ScumVM would be updated for new platforms and the games would work because they were working for ScumVM. It was a brilliant idea, and it was an absolute passion project for these people who organized it. But Beneath the Steel Sky, the responsibility to port that fell to two people, Joost Peters and Robert Groffingham. And Joost came to Revolution when we were doing something on one of the platforms. And he was meant to come for a week, but then he never left. And that was probably 15 years ago. And the reason he never left is we said, gosh, we really want to do Beneath the Steel Sky 2. And he went, oh, okay, yeah, in that case, I'll stay. And we kept promising him that we were going to do Beneath the Steel Sky 2. And then eventually we did. So, Tobias,
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's he's one of the of course the biggest Beneath the Steel Sky fans we have. I also consider myself a big fan, but Joost knows everything about the original, and he set high standards for what the sequel is meant to be. So he's our programmer doing a lot of the tools we use. He's involved in a lot of the engineering work that got into that. So he's played a big part of the production.
Yeah, and he's also probably the reason that we have a working Linux version in the works for our Steam release.
Definitely.
He's very passionate about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is, Wendy, and I know you said this at the beginning, but just to say, I mean, I'm often presenting this, and Tobias is, and other people, but we have a core team of 15 people who have worked so hard, and really, when problems have arisen, have worked through the night to get things done. We always said that we despise the idea of crunch, particularly long-term crunch, because it's so counterproductive. But there have been times where we have a deadline, a really hard deadline that we have to hit, and we didn't actually ask anybody to do it, but people have kind of stepped up and done the most amazing, worked so hard. And Tobias said this earlier, but we're very proud of the team as well, because they're terrific guys and girls, and just have done an amazing job. So big shout out to them.
Yeah, I'm so incredibly proud. I think none of us could sleep or step away over the weekend when you guys started experiencing the game. It's so hard to release on a Thursday night because that only leaves us Friday to really like get everybody in, and a lot of people start playing over the weekend. So all of us we're just crowding around work tasks on the weekend anyway, because we just couldn't leave it. We couldn't leave you alone. I couldn't step away. I know myself. And I know that I remember the feeling of I posted a few issues up for the devs to get to on Monday, and I was structuring that list, and suddenly 2-3 devs came back to me with suggestions on how to advise you, and it was such a heartwarming moment that I knew that none of us could step away. None of us could actually go into the weekend knowing that you guys might be stuck somewhere and you're just helpless and we need to be there. Yeah, so it's a journey, and it's a ride, and it's beautiful. It's a lovely team. I want at this point, I want you to know how deeply we appreciate everybody who said anything at all about the game. If you tweeted to us, if you liked our posts, if you mentioned our name, if you told your friend, if you downloaded the game quietly, it means a lot to us. And going forward to the Steam platform, I posted a link up in the chat, but I can again in a bit. Wishlisting the game on Steam is one of the most important ways that you can support us for free with the click of a button. If you have a Steam account, if you click that link, log in, and just put it onto your wish list, that can be the difference of us receiving front page featuring and drowning in the sea of beautiful, amazing games that are coming out. That is so crucial to indie studios. A lot of the featuring opportunities are editorial, but some of them are really dependent on hitting certain numbers in the back end. So that is really a way that you can support the studio with no money at all, almost no time at all, and with no you don't even need to get it if you don't want it at the end. You can make the choice there and then when we release. But putting that on your wish list is really a big way to support any indie studio at all. If you can think about any game that you're thinking about being excited coming out, head to the Steam store page and just wishlist it. Thank you very much. To those
actually,
of you
another
already
advantage,
posting.
Wendy. So another advantage is that you actually then get communications from Steam about that particular game. So
Yes, they reach out to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the game release stuff, it's so secret and so hidden, and either people are in the know or they're not, and it's really annoying. I'm sure to gamers who who don't want to know that much about dev. They just want to play the game. They just want to know that the game's out, that the game's good, and that they want to play it, and I get that. But we live in an age of spectacle, and I think it's important to know that, and it's important to know how to support things that you believe in. And I really believe in these games. I've fallen in love from the second I signed on to the studio, and I'm really, really proud of everything we've done from the second I stepped foot into this team until now. Except for the disconnect on the stream. That was awkward. I'm sorry. Not my proudest moment.
Cool.
Oh, man. So July 16th, guys. What are we going to do until then? Just kidding.
Well, we'll have to have some sort of. Well, I know, Wendy, you've got some great plans for.
Oh, yeah.
For further communications and fun things.
Yes.
So should we invite some questions from people?
Yes,
do you think?
guys. Do you have any questions to ask? I'm gonna scroll through the channel and see if you posted anything up, and I'm going to start reading them out now. All right. Somebody said, "Hey, I know the machine Charles was holding. I can be used to block an open door."
It can. But do you know what? Whoever said that, I think, has listened to my talk, because I told that joke for about here. What I said was that you could, because it's got this, you could use it even when people moved on and bought a Spectrum. You could still use it to hold open a door. And I think that I'd said that so many times now that I hope whoever said that has if I'm correct, and it's my joke that they've heard before, only heard it once, because you're lucky, because I do tend to tell the same joke many times when it's a good joke like that.
I love it. I think it's really funny.
Did anybody guess how much more memory?
Well, the thing is, I don't know the answer, so I don't know how to guess. I'm sorry, the machine came out when I did.
No, I know. So the answer, if anybody, and we'll reveal it in 2 minutes. So anybody who wants to put a guess down, and the question is, how much more memory does this 256 gig iPhone have? How much more memory than this computer?
Put your answers in chat, and I will announce a winner over on Twitter. That is, we're at RefSoft Games over there. Because I will have to probably backtrack through the comments and see who got it right after the stream. Yeah, like we're already getting some answers in here, which is exciting. Somebody, where is it? I scrolled away from it. It was so cute. Somebody talked about Foster's teddy bear. Aww, as their favorite Bass 1 memory.
And can I tell you how that happened? We had when Dave Gibbons talks about the fact that we sent him an Amiga and a copy of an art package called DPaint. It was actually DPaint 2. And with DPaint, you actually, each pixel, bearing in mind that the screen resolution was 320/200 and you had 64 colors on the Amiga. And so you had to choose the colors really carefully. So for people who played the original game, you arrive and it's a sort of blue screen and it's clinical. And then you go outside and it's red and it's fiery. And you might think that it was an artistic decision. To an extent it was mainly a practical decision because we had so few colors that actually each color, each screen had its own theme. But we had a very, very experienced, well, I say experienced, he'd worked on Lure of the Temptress before Beneath the Steel Sky, but a very talented sprite artist called Steve Oates. And Steve, I remember, drew an awful lot of those sprites. And we had an animation of Foster getting changed into something. And I said, oh, just, cut away and just, it'll be fine. And Steve came in, I remember, and worked really hard overnight to draw the animation of Foster actually changing. And then he drew a little teddy on, and I didn't know until the end. So that teddy was absolutely the invention of Steve Oates, who was one of the key people. And the other thing, if I can also say, is that Tony Warriner and Dave Sykes, who are two of the founders, together with myself and Noreen Carmody, were the programmers who wrote the system. Steve Ince was an artist who came in at some point through that as well. Adam Tween. So we owe a great debt of gratitude to Dave Cummins, of course, who wrote the dialogue. We owe a great debt of gratitude to those people who wrote the original game, which we're all very proud of, and clearly formed the basis on which we could then write Beyond a Steel Sky. I've forgotten the question. There was a question in there somewhere, wasn't there?
The teddy bear shirt.
The teddy bear. Yeah, that's where the teddy bear comes from.
God, I was wondering. I never really questioned it because everybody can enjoy anything. But it is a cute story. Somebody asked, how many iterations of the opening scene of Foster heading towards Union City have you gone through, seeing how it changes from various early trailers to the videos? Oh, that's a Tobias question.
Oh, I would say being agile. I think the easy question there, answer there, sorry, is countless. We've been iterating and iterating till we landed on something that we felt like it worked nicely as a part of the first level. First impressions is everything. So we really focused on that early part of the game.
I think the question isn't how many iterations, it's how did we stop for long enough to make a whole trailer from beginning to end to capture one art style. And that was only thanks to people like Corinna, who's done our marketing, who's helping us kind of like say, okay, this is a cutting point. I need the trailer. And then we stop for a second and give her one. So somebody said, I'm so excited to play a new Rev game. So now that the game is in its finishing stages, are you already thinking about the next game? This is a question I've gotten on Discord before. Charles, do you want to take that?
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, to be fair, we are very much, in the finishing line, which is fantastic. Or sorry, the finishing stages, but we still have quite a lot of work to do. We still have to prepare the PC version. We still continue working to hone any rough edges, to fix bugs. So we do continue, but not with the level of intensity that we have. So yes, of course, thinking about new projects. At the moment, our minds are mainly on Beyond the Steel Sky. So I don't want to talk specifically about what that project is, but of course, it's always wonderful, the early stages of the project. And it then gets harder and harder and harder as you have to turn it into something. Before you have to deliver anything, then you can have these wonderful ideas, and that's the easy bit. Well, it's not easy, but it's the waffly bit. And then you have the producer turning around and saying, well, that's all very well, but our scope is this, and what exactly does this mean? And I mean, it's developing games. Really, there can't be a better job in the world. There just can't be. It's an extra. Films are great, of course, and they're very sexy. But the thing about films is that they're linear. You get a script, and that each page is about a minute. If you have a good imagination, you should be able to read a script and imagine what the end result's going to be. Video games and adventures in particular have this extra dimension because of the interactivity, and it makes them much, much harder to write than a film or a television script. And it means that you have to, as I was saying earlier, you have to be able to iterate as well, because you can't possibly imagine what the end result is. I think in a film, you pretty much can. If you read the script, you should be able to imagine what's going to come out of it. That just doesn't happen in games. It's a really, really hard thing to do. And that's why I think anybody who writes a good game should be very proud. Because it's difficult, isn't it, Tobias? I mean, you've worked for quite some time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And back to the point I was making about learning what the game is supposed to be is a part of that. We've designed and prototyped different systems, but actually learning how the system functions once implemented, and how to get the best out of these ideas, and best possibly implement these it's a learning process, and you don't know how it's going to be before you start it, and that I think is different than with movies. So it's quite different. Yeah.
One of the big advantages that we had by self-funding the prototype and the vertical slice was that there wasn't the pressure to go into production. So Tobias will remember that we spent a long time building a prototype of the first section, working out how the link hacking could work, how it would affect the characters and the puzzle structure. And that changed an awful lot. Because, for example, for those who have played the game, there's a waterfall. And you might wonder why there's a waterfall with. And do you think I should admit, Tobias, where that?
Yeah,
where that
I
came
think
from?
so. I think it's a great story. Yeah.
Okay, so there was going to be a whole section behind the waterfall, and there was going to be a puzzle to turning the waterfall off. And then it was actually an ex-journalist, a really good friend of Revolution, who's been terrifically helpful to us, a guy called Richard Cobbett, came along and he said, people just want to get into the city. People just want to get into the city. And he was absolutely right. You knew that you wanted to get into the city pretty early on. And, if we'd had a whole section under the waterfall, there would have been oh no, I just want to get through those gates. And now you're making me do this. So we cut back on quite a lot of the proposed gameplay, but we kept the waterfall in because we liked the idea of being able to electrocute things, particularly the gangs.
Somebody said, I've always felt like Revolution Software was cool, Uncle. Is that for you, Tobias? It's your cousin tuning in. Your nephew.
Oh yeah. Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear it.
He said, "I've always felt like Revolution software was cool, Uncle."
Cool uncle.
Cool
Yeah,
uncle.
because Tobias, you're an uncle, right?
I'm a cousin, but I think that might be a joke there. I'm missing that got lost in translation. So, but yeah, hi to it.
I'm
Nice to
not
have
sure.
you on the stream.
It might be the fact that Revolution being 30 years old.
That we're not a cool uncle of the games industry.
That we are kind of cool because I mean, despite I know that I look extraordinarily young.
Yeah, you do.
But and I know that very few people could believe that Revolution is 30 years because Noreen looks very young as well, as does Tony and Dave. I think we've aged well between us all. And then, as I said, from this machine, which was released in 1981, that's 40 years. So I think it's nice to be a cool uncle, not a creepy uncle. Because there are creepy uncles as well, aren't they? And as long as we can stay on the cool side, then that's great. I'll take that one as a compliment.
So too. My uncle was really awesome. And I don't know anybody who thinks the uncle isn't cool. Right. So let me browse some more. Oh, somebody asked, can I wish to list the game twice? You can with 2 accounts, but I'm not recommending it. Why would I? So somebody says, Charles, what's your opinion on using walkthroughs for adventure games? Does it ruin the experience in your opinion?
Oh, what a good question. Tobias, we worked really hard, didn't we, to try and make the puzzles logical.
Yes,
and
we did, yeah.
The idea of these sort of arenas that people are in, we hope, is that the more people explore, the more they find out. And so this is actually this is going to be a really good segue. You're going to be very impressed by this. When we started, there were two things that were, well, there were many things that were important, but two of the things was, one, we're going to give Foster the crowbar for the same reason that we gave him the equivalent in the original Beneath the Steel Sky. And that is because if he could kick the door down, then he would kick the door down. And we wouldn't put some silly puzzle in that actually you're shouting, but he would just pull it. He'd just do this. He'd just do that or the other. So by giving Foster a crowbar, whenever there was a puzzle that he would just be able to pull, we allow you to use your crowbar. And the other thing is that by using the link hacking system and the virtual theater, in many ways, that gives us, as game designers, more scope to create puzzles that kind of emerge from the behavior of what the player chooses to do. So instead of having, a goat's head, and when you pull it around, you've got a USB stick, and the USB stick can be poked into somebody's eye or whatever. And you can come up with this puzzle that is really funny in retrospect once you've discovered. What we wanted to make sure that our puzzles made sense and that they could be reasonably solved if you took the time to explore the world, if you took the time to talk to people. So in the first section, you have a firecracker. You get a firecracker, you know that you're going to use the firecracker to scare something. You know that the gang birds are getting in the way, so it makes sense. You get the battery. So at all stages, you get inventory items that make perfect sense and you know what they're going to do, which is not the same as most adventure games where you get strange objects which you use in strange ways. What we wanted to do was kind of go above that and really design the game to make sure that the puzzles made sense. So to answer the question, we would love it if people didn't need to use the hints. If they do because they want to move faster or because they're genuinely stuck, then of course it doesn't ruin the experience. And we put in. How long, Tobias, did we put in for the cooldown period in the end?
Well, I think we've gone a bit back and forth on that, but I think we ended up with around a minute for the cooldown.
Okay. So
that is, of course, as we mentioned, this is we are listening to player feedback, and if somebody feels like things are ruined too quickly, and we get a lot of feedback on that, we might change it.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of being able to do post-launch support.
Yep, and just be very vocal. Join our Discord again, discord.gg/revolutionsoftware. Leave your opinions there. If you think that puzzle is too hard, like, of course those are our opinions, but we still like to listen. We will not act on every single inch of feedback that you guys give us, but you can still leave it there and we can still consider it. Because if you say it, maybe 30 other people will resonate with that and will say, like, actually, I didn't want to say anything, but yeah. And then we can listen to that. But yeah, like
Wendy,
I think.
Wendy,
Huh?
can I just say I'm very impressed for somebody who's Austrian talking about inches.
Oh, well, I don't want to brag, but my wife has been very insistent on me
2.2
switching over.
centimeters. But for those that don't know what an inch is, it's 2.2 centimeters.
Had to learn that the hard way. So I think that it's important to realize that we all enjoy games differently. If you love the game, but you're not very good at puzzles, and believe me, I was stuck outside those city walls the first time I played it for 8 hours. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. The hint system was not yet working when I played it the first time. So I went into it blind because I wanted to, and I wanted to see how it is to get completely frustrated and get stuck in. Because I wanted to know that I can resonate with the community if they report that to me. And that was my first experience of the game. So I have a lot of sympathy for if you say, I love the game. I kind of like the intrigue and the puzzle and the thrill, but I don't need to think 30 minutes before I make every second step or switch the level over. I just want to enjoy the ride. Knock yourself out. I think it was App Unwrapper who did a really thorough, good walkthrough. Really big shout out to them. And if that's your style, if you want to do this walkthrough, then do it. If you want to kind of like leave a back door open and you don't really want it to be spoiled, but you do want to ask about it, join our Discord. We have a dedicated channel for puzzle help where both community helps each other and we jump in as well if nobody responds to you fast enough. If you want to go in blind and you really want to hardball it and really like sweat half a day over a puzzle, do it. All the power to you. It really is supposed to be the way that you want to play it. This is the World Wide Web, baby. You can just Google that. But yeah, so we've been, it's been an hour since we started streaming, and I think we have to wrap it up. Again, for those of you who've not been here since the beginning, we finally announced the release date. It is the 16th of July. That means it's in only 15 more times of sleeping. 15 more sleeps until the game's coming out. We hope that you can wait with us. We hope you can fever with us. I have a really aggressive social media campaign lined up for it, where we will like really celebrate this countdown now because today's the 1st already. So we gotta get going with that. And I think for now it's back to work for us, right?
Yeah. So brilliant. So can I just say, and Tobias will follow, but thanks to Wendy, you're brilliant and you've done so well. Our wonderful team, who have been extraordinary. Our community who just bring so much joy to us, and it's the reason we do what we do, because frankly, it's more important than anything else. Also to Kira, who's in the background making all of this work, and got very cross with me because we didn't prepare in time. So sorry for putting that stress
Sorry,
on
Kira.
you. And yeah, and it's great, and it's just such a relief. Thank you so much for enjoying the game. Thank you for putting up with some of the bugs, which we are fixing very hard. Thank you also for putting up for some of these devices. It's all stuff that we're responding to, and at the very heart of it, you as our community are absolutely our passion. We love writing games for you guys and hearing from you, and thank you in particular.
Great. Yeah,
That's
and I
it.
think Charles covered most of my points. I just want to say that we are very much looking forward to release the game on July 16th on Steam for you to play it on your PCs and on Linux. It's going to be really exciting, and thank you for all of your feedback, good and bad. It's all constructive to us, so thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.